you check the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And again, Jaime Fuego here.
And we are here to review, not react to, but review another brand new movie that came out. It came out last week. I ended up seeing it with Morgan, but we weren't able to get a review recorded. Fuego ended up seeing it, and we just reviewed the brand new Exorcist movie, so we figured we might as well just go ahead and review this one as well. We're going to be talking about Saw 10, aka Saw X.
Yes.
So this is the 10th installment of the franchise, obviously, if that wasn't clear to you up until now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because even though it is the 10th installment and everything, you know, there have been like a few little like side stories of sorts that they've done in the last few entries. You know, Jigsaw, Spiral, which I think you and I reviewed Spiral.
I believe we did, yeah.
Correctly. Yeah, and so, yeah, they've kind of meandered with their weird little like homage, you know, subplot, side story sort of stuff. But this is the first like true like return to form. Tobin Bell, and you know they did, spoiler, you know, kill off Jigsaw, so to speak, the John Kramer character. But the fact that the
they
series
did that in the third film, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that the series has always jumped around timeline wise, this kind of made the ultimate aspect of sense. And you know, bringing back Shawnee Smith as Amanda and everything, this was very much them going back to the well, as you know, a lot of people like to say. But in a lot of ways, I felt like from a storytelling standpoint, at least, this was one of the stronger efforts from the trap standpoint, which is what like the series kind of turned into, was like more gore, more elaborate insanity, which happened with like 4 or 5, 6, you know, the final chapter, all that stuff. You know, that's where it veered into like sheer idiocy. Except for 6, which 6 is a really unsung sort of installment about, like, it's an indictment of the medical community here in the States and everything. But aside from that, everything else was just kind of this
6
one...
directed by the same director as Saw X.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
He directed 6 and 7.
It explores a lot of the same themes, man. It really, really does. And like from a storytelling standpoint, I felt like this was one of the strongest Saw films, and really embodies what underlining beyond the torture porn sort of stuff what this franchise stands for me, at least. How about you?
I agree. I enjoyed this film. My overall thoughts were I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed it more than most of the sequels as far as the story goes. As far as the traps go, I do think we took a step back as far as the creativity of the traps went. Mm-hmm. But the story itself was more engaging than most of the stories had been up to this point. So overall, I really enjoyed the film. Obviously, the director, having done 6 and 7, knows his way around the franchise and knows how to make it feel a part of the franchise, even though it's meant to be an earlier part. But yeah, Tobin Bell, bringing him back and making him the main character, I think was...
Dude, it was it was a great choice, because, you know, as we
super smart.
Yeah, and maybe even leapfrog the story and right into the acting, I would say, because Tobin Bell is so engaging in this. It might be the best I have seen him in the entirety of the franchise, because remember, he was barely in the first film. He got a little bit more time to shine in the second film.
Right.
Third film, obviously, with, you know, the just deterioration of his body with, you know, the terminal illness and everything, which is explored here. I shout out to Jason Smith, our buddy, Sinister Cinema, man. There was somebody who was saying, like, the initial reports were that this takes place between 1 and 2. That's not quite true, as we dance around spoilers and everything. This is much more, you know, a little bit later in the timeline, and you know,
I got the impression it was still between 1 and 2.
I was feeling more so 2 and 3. You know, the fact that there's one moment in particular where 2 characters are talking, and there is a noteworthy aspect to one character, and the fact that it's like not just nationally known but internationally known about who John Kramer actually is. And yeah, that's something that doesn't happen until after the second film. But, you know, semantics aside, I was so impressed with the fact that Tobin Bell was able to like carry this film in the capacity that he does. And if we're going to veer in the story a little bit, one of the things that kind of, it doesn't necessarily bug me, but it's something that's a newer hallmark of the franchise, is the fact that it's gone from gray area to the fact that he is essentially a anti-hero of sorts, with this, you've sinned and I'm gonna, judge you, so to speak, and yet I don't kill people, which, is honestly like a big revelation about people who like are insane. They're like, my means of justice don't necessarily make sense to the average person, and but still fascinating and like exceptional from a performance standpoint. Shawnee Smith, I felt like she was a little out of the loop of acting at times, and so some of her line delivery was a little stilted, but then there were other scenes where I thought she was great. So I don't know, her returning as Amanda was really cool, and I feel like I'm dominating the conversation, so I'm going to loop it to you, man.
Well, you kind of jumped ahead to acting as well, so let's rewind it back a little bit and just say that the story itself is about John Kramer, right? It focuses on him as the main character as he is trying to figure out a way to fight this brain cancer that he's got, and he hears of this new treatment, this supposedly wonder treatment, and he goes and seeks it out, and it passes most of his sniff tests, and he ends up doing the thing, and then he finds out what he was promised isn't quite what he's getting out of it necessarily, again, without trying to spoil things, and he decides to teach the crew of people that gave him hope a bit of a lesson. And so it is
very well danced around, sir.
Yeah, it is a very deeply personal installment of the franchise, and making John.
So I would argue.
Yeah, I agree. Making them, I agree. It's the most so. Making John the lead character was really smart, and at this point we know him. We know that he's the anti-hero, and so this was just us getting to watch him be that during his quote-unquote heyday. So much so that the first trap that we see, it's not necessarily, it's not, let's just, exactly. Yeah. You see how John's brain works, and we've never seen that before. Funny,
now that I say it like that. He's envisioning a trap.
Yeah, for that particular character.
For those who have seen it. Yeah.
But so it's a little bit different. It gives us a different insight into what's going on with him, and it's really engaging to see how they did it, and they pulled it off. I really appreciated how the story played out. Now, unfortunately, like I said, the traps themselves weren't the most creative, but you could tell that it was early in John's career. He hadn't come up with the most interesting and elaborate of traps yet, because it takes place, quote unquote, right after the second movie, or right after the first movie, rather.
Yeah, somewhere between one and three.
Yeah. But so that's the overall of it and the story, and I think it played out really interestingly. And here's the thing: usually a story that takes place between 1 and 2 of a series that has 9 entries, you're like, who gives a shit? We know where this is going. There's no stakes here. But I didn't feel that way about this. I was engaged the whole time, even though I knew what the end game was going to at least include, because I know John had to make it to part 3 of the Saw franchise, so I know that he's going to make it out. But it's all the other characters I didn't know what was going to happen to, and so it held my interest on that level. So yeah, story-wise, it was very engaging, very intriguing, and perhaps more engaging on that level than the rest of the sequels in the whole franchise.
Yeah, it really just kind of hangs on your perceptions of the fact that, okay, he's in this different country, and so the traps themselves, because he's in a different country, have to be more rudimentary, they have to be more pedestrian, they have to be smaller scaled, I suppose, based on where he is, and yet the viciousness is still there, and yet the moral sort of magnitude is there too, and maybe emphasized more so here than in any of the previous entries, and the fact that I don't kill people, I give them, and that's a hallmark of insanity, where you think that putting somebody in a position where they will most certainly die, and you're like,
it absolves you of blame.
I'm not actually killing them, so to speak. It's interesting to me, but
You may not be killing them, but you're putting them in a position to die.
Will most definitely die, and it doesn't happen with every character. We're not going to specify, but there are certain moments where I was just like, okay, it's kind of an insurmountable sort of situation.
Well, but that's what I liked about this one, in so much as, again, without spoiling, there was a lot more of the, oh, wait, they might actually get out of this than in the past. You know what I mean? Like, because
the traps were a little simpler based on where he was.
But also because they decided story-wise to let a couple of people succeed. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah. And that's not always the way it goes. And and that made it more interesting to me. And so
I agree.
I was deeply engaged for this whole film. I don't think that, again, the traps weren't super creative, but the story itself was so engaging. It didn't overstay its welcome, and the acting was awesome. It was great to see Shawnee Smith back, even though it was at a very particular moment in Amanda's life cycle. Yeah, because
she's kind of stilted at times in her performance.
Well, I wouldn't say stilted, but everyone's got their own opinion. But I do think that she quite hasn't developed into the complex character she turned out to be in part 3.
Yeah.
So I do think by that assessment, she slotted her acting into the right area of the story. But overall, I think that it was a really entertaining film. Now let's talk about the filmmaking. Again, this was made by the director of 6 and 7. And so
Kevin, I'm trying to remember his name. I had it pulled up.
Keep looking it up, yeah. But he did a really great job. He kept us into it. He brought me more into it with Jigsaw's personal story and stuff like that. So everyone that was put into a trap, like normally all the people you see put into traps,
there's an impersonal
completely impersonal, because you don't know them. But in this one, they give you the first half hour to meet everyone and learn about them, and you see them be completely nice, which ultimately is what makes you hate them, because you know that under the surface they were just trying to rob him. Yeah. And so, like, it gave you a reason to cheer for him. Like, you weren't just like cringing at their deaths. You were like cringing and secretly smiling at their deaths. You know what I mean? It added a level of appreciation for the kills that weren't there outside of just the gory aspect in the past films.
And that's where I really emphasize the anti-hero aspect, because it's completely different when you're exercising justice in comparison with just, people who have had like minor infractions, and you're going to make them suffer, so to speak, which is really what the franchise veered into over time. Kevin Guertort.
Okay.
I'm totally butchering his name, I would presume, but he was the one, as you mentioned, who did 6, which is one of my favorites of the franchise, and then final chapter in 7. This definitely, from a stylistic standpoint, I would say, did so much with so little, because I could tell that there was like a smaller budget, because all these
big time smaller budget.
Yeah, all these Saw films.
It felt like a one location for the most part.
Yeah, and dare I say, I would wonder if Spiral had a larger budget.
I think it must have,
based on the Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson effect and everything. Which I didn't despise that movie like some people did. Just like
I didn't despise it. It just was not. I didn't care. It was outside of the continuity, so it didn't really matter.
Exactly.
And so far, that's proven to be correct.
yeah. This one did fairly good at the box office, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it didn't beat out your son's beloved.
No, but people are anticipating another movie coming down the line.
Yeah, and they definitely leave it wide open. I mean, there's so many wide open gaps in the Saw chronology for storytelling. So
keeping with this John Kramer bit for a while, if they did 3 movies within this era of time, I think you could definitely get away with it. I think it'd be really fucking cool.
They do hint at the return of another kind of successor.
They directly show.
I know, without spoiling stuff. And I actually really like those movies with that particular character.
I did too. Anyone that's watched all of our reviews on the channel know that I have a particular pet name for this character. But
It was cool to see that character show up.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, and they used his voice in a scene leading up to the end as well when he checked the voicemail. When he called and asked for help from someone. But yeah, honestly.
So Cecil, I always forget, like, do you really like this franchise that much?
I do.
Or are you just more ho-hum on it?
No, I really like it a lot. And part of what I like about it is each installment ties together with the whole story more so than any other franchise out there. Even if there are tie-together installments, at some point, most franchises veer off into other directions. This is the only one that's maintained the same continuity throughout its entire life cycle. And I think that's something to be commended. Because
our friend Jason Smith
it's hard
loves
to do.
this franchise, man, and it's like his favorite horror franchise. From what
I didn't see what he thought about this one. I haven't watched his review yet.
Yeah, I haven't either because I never watch anything until I've filmed my own thoughts about something.
Right.
And so that's how I always go about it. But I really dug this one. Maybe I wanted more carnage, but I felt from a storytelling standpoint, just to veer back to that, man, this was one of the strongest. And like, Tobin Bell's acting was exceptional in this, and it's really nice to see him, return. And even if producers are lamenting the fact that we probably shouldn't have killed him off as quick as we did, blah blah blah, and, but hey, timeline jumping, you can put him in any sort of story you want, right?
That's the problem when you create a phenomenal slasher with a brain tumor. And by the way, let's not miss out on shouting out the score by, is it Charlie Clouser? Or how do you say the dude's name?
I can't say I know.
The one that does the dun 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 dun
dun
dun dun dun.
I was so happy when we finally got it near the end of the film. I was like, okay, we're finally gonna get it. Yeah.
I think it's Charlie Clouser. Hang on, let's see. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Yeah, because I rewatched the original.
Yeah, Charlie Clouser. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I rewatched the original film and the second film leading up to this, and I
Saw X gets its highest Rotten Tomatoes score of the whole franchise. Like, that's something.
I know 6 actually has a pretty decent...
This beat it. No, this was higher.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I was a fan, man. I feel like this has rejuvenated the franchise, and the side stories like Spiral and Jigsaw didn't really do too much for it. I feel like returning to the franchise proper, especially because of the fact that they were like a hallmark of every single Friday before Halloween.
It was a Halloween, yeah.
So that was their thing, and
same with Paranormal Activity, right?
Yeah,
they were pretty regular as well.
They actually basically like jumped on the Halloween bandwagon after Saw was ready to call it quits and peace out. They're like, okay, we'll take up that every Friday before Halloween sort of situation, which is cool. But I don't know, man. I'm just like, Tobin Bell is a gangster. He is such an exceptional actor, and the fact that I can feel so much empathy for his character despite the nastiness that he orchestrates, I just can't sing his praises enough, for the fact that I can feel that confliction about, do I side with him, or is he a bad person, or is he insane? It's kind of a combination, somewhere of all of those things, I guess. But
well, and this was the first film in the whole franchise. We're 10 movies in, and like you're watching the people go through their situations along with him. Like you're in the same room. You see him and Shawnee reacting to the people either making it or not making it, and it's so interesting to see those reactions because you never do otherwise.
Yeah. And there's even little disagreements amongst them at a couple instances, right? And there's one character that
definitely is saved as a result.
You would assume is going to be spared, one character later in the film, because there's no wrongdoing on the slate. But still, it really just showed the other side of the torturous nastiness, and so props to that, man.
So there you go, guys. I mean, did we touch on everything, Fuego? Did we?
I feel like we kind of did. I mean,
well, let's hit the gore real quick, because this is definitely a gory installment in the franchise. They did not shy away from it. I do feel like it was gorier than the other ones. especially considering there's a in-depth homage to Hannibal. You know what I mean, so to speak. But there was quite a bit of gore in this one, especially when you get to the quote unquote waterboarding sequence. You know what I mean? So
I still don't think it was as crazy as like the crazy shit.
I didn't say crazy. I said gory.
Yeah. Okay. The just over the top stuff we saw between like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, like where they were just trying to up themselves with the outlandishness and all of that. The poster shows a kill, which is maybe the most inventive and interesting of the entire film, personally for me.
But also, is it real?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I would say is that the director of this movie has said that we used more buckets of blood in this particular Saw film than in any previously.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I know because of one scene why that was the case. And so I was a little underwhelmed with the kills, personally, but I'm not a gore hound, so it didn't really matter to me because so much of the storytelling, like a Saw movie with solid storytelling, how about that? Yeah, this most definitely embodied it, and I was impressed. And so I was okay with the fact that it didn't go for the hardcore gore factor that I was necessarily expecting. Although, with one woman, with like her leg and like everything else going on, yeah, that was like the pinnacle of the gruesomeness of this. So
yeah, I the one thing that kind of catches me in some of the Saw franchises is the people that see these things happen right in front of them, and yet they still end up being hesitant for their portion of the game.
Oh
because it's like you clearly see the consequences if you don't just do what you're told to do, and yet all of them wait. Like if all of them have a 3-minute counter, they all wait till at least 1 minute before they start to do anything. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Daughter of said character cheering the other person on to just resign her own fate. It says a lot about just the human condition and the nature of just saving your own skin. So
So all right. Did we cover? So we covered the gore. We covered the filmmaking, right?
Yeah, man.
I think that's pretty much everything.
I think we're in good shape.
So yeah, why don't you guys let us know in the comments down below, what did you think of Saw 10 or Saw X? Be curious to know y'all's opinion. I know some people are a little lackluster with it, and some people are saying it's the best Saw film since 1. And personally, I think I might agree with that, outside of just a couple of limiting factors. So overall, though, it was a really, really good time, a good strong time. Yeah,
I would contend that it really depends what you were wanting from this film in a lot of ways. If you wanted just like abrasive, insane gore, or if you wanted expanding of the universe and more like storytelling with regards to crucial characters. And so, yeah.
That's fair. All right, so there you go, you guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for joining me, Fuego. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, where we will endeavor to do a review roundup, the first review roundup of 2023. So, we've got
lots of ground to catch up on.
9 months of movies and TV shows to cover. So it'll be a long one this Sunday, but it'll be fun nonetheless.
No, it's going to be rad status, man. And, just thank you very much for bearing with the return for film and media studies at Arizona State. That's what's kept me away from the channel for the most part in a lot of instances. So, man.
That is right, dude.
Very much looking forward to getting caught up proper with you, sir.
Indeed, it's going to be fun. So thank you guys very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias a Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.